Coming up on show 926, what the US election result could mean for EVs and around the world as well. Stick around, we'll tell you more. Plus today, China's EV sales just keep getting better and better post-pandemic. NIO launching a big battery with a battery swap, and another racing series goes electric. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. First one of the week, Monday edition today. My name is Martin Lee, going through every EV story so you don't have to save your time. Now, no matter who you voted for, if you're in the US, I'm sure you will agree it's been a funny old week. And there's still a few people around who I gather still don't think it's over. But I'll go with what is generally being reported and seen as the okay thing to say, which is the US election results. Yes, big asterisk. I'm fully aware of what's happening in the news. But from Reuters, the news that Biden is going to be the new president of the US means that he will quickly reinstate the legal basis for California's zero-emission vehicle rules. And he'll begin the process of reversing the previous administration's, the current administration's, decision to ease the fuel efficiency and carbon emission requirements through 2025. Automakers could also face sharply higher penalties for failing to meet fuel efficiency requirements. Well, the current administration rolled back those penalties, which the industry said saved $1 billion in annual compliance costs. But a federal appeals court back in August reversed the administration's action. That said, Biden is also looking to bolster the EV economy in ways that appeal to automakers via tax incentives for buyers, as well as the development of a more comprehensive national charging infrastructure, according to Jalopnik. General Motors and Ford, the two largest automakers based in the United States, both issued statements over the weekend saying that they were looking forward to working with the president-elect Joe Biden and his administration on policies that support U.S. manufacturing and other issues, according to Autoblog. Well, as per the Detroit Free Press, Ford Motor Company offered congratulations to the president-elect, along with all winners of the various elections, according to a statement from the spokeswoman Rachel McCleary. Ford said, and I quote, "It's our hope these leaders will focus on bringing the country together and pursue policies that encourage US manufacturing, sustainability, and global economic stability," end quote. Well, General Motors also called for policies to support their endeavor, according to a statement from the spokeswoman Janine Givivian, who said, and I quote, "We look forward to working with the new administration and incoming Congress on policies that support our customers, dealers and employees, help strengthen our manufacturing presence in the United States, and advance our vision of an all-electric zero-emissions future," end quote. So that spokeswoman from GM making very clear that their vision, their direction is on zero emissions, on pure electric, and they look forward to advancing that under Joe Biden. The Green Car Reports article I read today highlighted a bunch of things that could happen very quickly, actually, under executive orders, like expanding and extending the EV tax credit. Now, Joe Biden's pre-election promise was that if he was elected president, he would reinstate the $7,500 federal tax credit for Tesla. And, of course, there was a 200,000 vehicle limit, which Tesla and GM hit, which was a strange... Well, it sort of made sense when this all came about years ago, but the effect of it was those that took the early risks, those that bet the house on EVs, those like Tesla, a great American company, those like GM, a great American company, when they hit their 200,000 vehicle limit, they were, of course, penalised. So they did more than others to stimulate an EV economy, and then other car makers, made on foreign soil, some would argue, would come in, swoop in, and then be able to use that $7,500 federal tax credit for not doing anything to take risks in the early part of that economy. So Joe Biden wants to bring that back and will do it as soon as possible with a limit of $250,000. If you earn more than that, you wouldn't be eligible. And I think that's, I don't know, I won't get into my personal politics of it, but, you know, if I earned 250 grand a year, I certainly wouldn't feel too bad about having to pay full price for a car. That's kind of understandable. I think that's household limit, though. I need to double check on that. I'm going back in the old recesses of the brain there, but he certainly has a policy on bringing back the federal tax credit. So if you were looking to buy a new EV from those companies, from Tesla and GM, who've hit their limit already, that would be great news for you. An accelerated conversion of public vehicle fleets to all electric, which would be good for those companies in the commercial space, the likes of BYD, which obviously, you know, have a US base and spend a lot of money on developing commercial and public vehicle conversions and new electric vehicles as well. More charging infrastructure was a key part of the promise. 500,000 charging locations, public DC fast chargers was the roadmap. Fewer charging deserts and energy poverty. Not something that I realised was an issue, but reading into this, it is a big issue. Obviously, I live on a small island, and the US is vastly bigger. And so there are plenty of places where you can't get a charge. Fewer, or rather a cleaner grid for rural America, which currently relies on a more dirtier form of electricity production. He promises to help finance EV manufacturing. He helps, part of the pre-election promise was to nurture startup domestic US EV companies. And part of that is to battle what is undoubtedly now the European influx and soon the Chinese influx. It's coming to the US. And also his final point was to return to tariff stability as well. And whilst he won't be able to go in on day one and change things like tariffs, I imagine he's more of a politician that would have things like tariff stability, so car companies can set roadmaps and investment plans and things like that. So I can see why the big companies, Herbert Diess as well, the head of VW, saying that a Joe Biden sort of stabilizing force would be better for VW's investment decisions, because they would be more comfortable with making plans knowing that perhaps there's less change going to happen or just more of a kind of a cohesive strategy around electric vehicles. So that's great. We'll see what legislation gets passed and what doesn't. And if you are sick of politics after watching Rolling News for the last week, I promise no more. That's it. However, very interesting how it will affect US and probably if the federal tax credit comes back for domestic, for US-made EVs, it will definitely be a shot in the arm for the likes of not just the ones I've mentioned, but other US makers, the likes of Lucid and those Rivian, of course, that would benefit directly and very quickly. I don't know when that would come back, but those cars will be on sale in the first half of next year, and so. Good news for buyers there. Okay, moving on. Car sales continue to recover in China last month as the coronavirus pandemic eased in China, and EVs won more users than in comparison to combustion cars. Retail sales of cars and SUVs increased 8% from a year earlier. The China Passenger Car Association said earlier today, wholesale of new energy vehicles, NEVs, what the Chinese call EVs, including electric cars, doubled to 144,000 units last month, writes Bloomberg today on MSN Money. Electric vehicles are cementing their role as one growth driver, helped by incentives like purchase subsidies. Sales of EVs in China, which does include plug-in hybrids and EVs, and fuel cell cars, which is really a rounding error, are expected to rise to about 1.1 million units this year, according to the association. And staying in China, a little bit of news which I saw come through my news feed today. Chinese company Incepto Technology, it's a startup that makes self-driving electric trucks, said today they'd raised another $120 million US, but it comes from CATL, who we talk about on this podcast a lot, the Chinese battery maker. CATL makes EV batteries for VW and Tesla, and they're working with truck makers to develop a business model for pure electric trucks using battery swapping technology. Staying in China, Tesla's Giga Shanghai factory is going to make about 550,000 cars next year, according to an industry insider speaking to the Chinese website 36kr.com and picked up via my Reddit feed this morning. According to an unnamed source, Tesla is going to make 300,000 Model 3s and 250,000 Model Ys next year, according to those companies who have had component orders placed. The website teslanorth.com says that while Tesla Shanghai factory has a planned capacity of 150,000 units this year, next year is more than 3 times that, and Model Y will be produced very soon, within days, some say, after they have now got approval to, paperwork is being filed to make Model Y now and get that signed off in China. 36kr.com says insiders predict Tesla's global sales next year with the help of the Chinese Gigafactory. Global sales would hit 900. Or production would hit 900,000 units. Remember, this year, Tesla want to achieve 500,000 units, which would be amazing in a COVID year. 900,000 could be 1 million next year, depending on how quickly Berlin starts making. And we'll see what happens to the share price of car companies today. I noticed that as of about 5 a.m. Pacific time this morning, Monday morning, as we record this, the US drug company Pfizer confirmed that their vaccine is being fast-tracked 90% effective, and that could have a huge impact on, not only all of our health, number one, perfect, but also the share price, the stock prices of things like automakers, which were particularly hit in a COVID year, and would certainly, if that is all how it sounds, means that we could be heading into a much better 2021, even if even if first responders and those most vulnerable could get access to a vaccine, be huge news for the economy and the EV economy as well. Talking about NIO, a 100 kilowatt hour battery, which features, I'll say this correctly, thermal propagation prevention. There you go. An all-climate thermal management and bi-directional cloud BMS is being launched. The battery upgrade plan benefits all NIO owners and NIO users with a monthly or yearly upgrade plan for the battery. And battery as a service, or BAS, BAAS, battery as a service, is coming for their new 100 kilowatt hour battery as well. The new NIO battery, available to NIO models, will be available from over the weekend. Users of the current 70 kilowatt hour battery can choose, because it's the same dimensions, and so can choose to either purchase the new battery for a permanent upgrade or upgrade it for 880 RMB a month, or about 8,000 RMB every year. The flexible monthly and yearly battery upgrade is an innovation that NIO says caters to their users' travel needs in different scenarios. Now, prior to this new 100 kilowatt hour battery, NIO had launched their battery swapping and battery as a service. So in other words, monthly battery rental for their 70 kilowatt hour battery. Users who chose that option didn't need to buy the battery, but they subscribed to it instead. Batteries of a different capacity would incur a different monthly fee in accordance with their needs. Users who buy a NIO car with the smaller battery, but battery as a service, can immediately enjoy a cost saving because you haven't got to buy the battery. So it's a great way of getting an EV, but then subscribing to the battery. And it means it's about 980 RMB a month. And you can obviously go to a battery swap station and have that swapped out for a fully charged one very, very quickly, just within a few minutes. And if you haven't got any way of charging your car, remember, different places around the world have vastly different needs with EVs, and something that I remind people of, and they say to me, I get comments on the YouTube show, I get emails, I get tweets from people saying, Tesla tried battery swapping, doesn't work. Try and remind people, look, there are places in China that very high density populations or multi-occupancy dwellings, you just can't charge a car. You haven't got parking, and the opportunity charging isn't there, and so battery swapping makes a huge amount of sense. And actually subscribing to a battery makes an enormous amount of sense. Even if people can't get their head around it, it does if you live in those kind of places, in those kind of cities, but you want to drive an EV and it makes sense. Just go and get your battery swapped. 4 or 5 minutes, 7 minutes I think is the maximum time. And as we can see here in this example we're talking about today, as battery technology improves, as it just did and will continue to do so, in the same dimensions of the battery that comes down out of the underneath of your car and a new one goes in, all of a sudden an extra 30 kilowatt hours packed in to the same physical space. Well, why wouldn't you want a bigger battery? All of a sudden your car just got a load better. As of today, NIO has 158 battery swap stations nationwide. They've done 1.2 million battery swaps, and it's a great thing for those. I don't know if it would work for me. I'm more than happy to. I have a driveway, but many people don't have off-road parking, so whatever works for you. MG is returning to Ireland as a brand. MG hasn't been sold in Ireland for a while, but they're expanding across Europe, and a new market is Ireland, where they'll only be selling plug-in cars. The ZS EV, the new MG5, the estate car, and the MG HS, which is a plug-in hybrid, are now for sale in Ireland, according to Inside EVs. I should tap up my source there. And a sponsor of the show, Derek Riley from the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, to see if he has some insights on that. Loving electric racing, the DTM Electric Series is set to be introduced in 2023, and the first prototype race car has now been shown during the 2020 season finale at Hockenheim's Touring Car Times website. Well, the car has 1,200 horsepower, developed in cooperation between DTM and Schaeffler, do I say that? The industrial supplier, been driven by Timo Scheider and Hans Stuck, as well as the Formula E racer Daniel Abt and the F3 racer Sophia Florisch. They're continuing to improve the prototype, and the series starts in 2023 with sprint races lasting 30 minutes and possibly automated battery swaps. There you go, during a mandatory pit stop. And finally, the UK's 4 biggest fleet operators. So here, the 4 biggest companies that operate fleets, so BT or Openreach, our broadband company, Centrica, DPD, Deliveries, and the Royal Mail, today have called on the British government to commit to 100% pure EVs, so banning the sale of any vehicle that burns anything by the year 2030. Huge piece of news when you get this kind of lobbying from big purchasing power, the big 4 fleet owners saying by 2030, they want to know no more cars on sale, no plug-in hybrids, just pure electrics. That's 9 years away. This is a heck of an ask, but it's doable. And they want to do that because they want clarity on their future spending. The demand comes through the UK Electric Fleets Coalition. According to Electrive, the coalition operates more than 500,000 vehicles on the road here. And founding members have pledged to electrify their fleets on top of the climate package and pledge. The alliance lobbies the British government to adopt the strict 2030 end date of any vehicle that burns anything. So not just petrol and diesel vehicles, but plug-in hybrids as well. An incredibly ambitious policy. I'm suspecting it'll be more like 2035 with my realistic hat on. But my heart, I'd love it to be 2030 and for us to take a leading role in the world. Whether it happens, I don't know. We'll wait and see. Another interesting piece of news. And that's your podcast for today. You know, it's just so obvious. There is not a day that goes by that there is not a ton of positive news about electric vehicles. Optimistic, forward-looking, really fantastic stories. And every day, this is a little caffeine shot in the arm of just positivity that just it makes me feel good. I can't help but sound excited when I read these stories to you and go through all the news every day for hours, because it's just a lovely thing to be spending my life immersed in positivity and optimism and hope as well around a clean, green, zero emissions future. And thank you for joining me on that journey. Well, I'm joining you on that journey. Really appreciate you listening every day and appreciate your supports. The Patreon supporters fund this show, so you get to listen for free if you're not a funder yet. There's no pressure to do so, by the way, but if you want to, the price of a posh coffee, $5 or $10 a month. means that you can support as this show gets put together. Financial support to allow me to do this and make this for you. Premium partners are Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, NationalCarCharging.com and AlohaCharge.com. Derek Riley, mentioned him already, the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel. And also, if you fancy getting yourself a used EV in the UK, check out Richard at R. Simons, rsymons.co.uk. And they are the electric vehicle specialists here. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow for Tuesday's show. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.